try to choose artists for this series that are basically considered insignificant or irrelevant today, and then I try to figure out how they got that way. And I don't really think that this week's artist fits the bill. That song was not by Fugees, but it's by Nas featuring Lauryn Hill. Just get that out of the way up front, just to show what the climate was like by the time that song came out. So I'm gonna get to them in a bit of a roundabout way this week. So Nas released his first album in 1994 called Illmatic. Hugely successful album. It really put him on the map. And he came out with his follow-up album, It Was Written, which that song is from. It's called If I Ruled the World. He really could have released anything and it probably would have been hyped. It would have been hotly anticipated, one of the most anticipated releases of that year by any rapper. Surely on the success of Illmatic. Coming on the heels of an album that was that popular, that was that acclaimed, he could have pretty much put out anything as the first single from It Was Written. But he led with that. You do not hear Nas at the beginning of that track, and I think that's what's significant about it. They knew what they had in Lauryn Hill. The Fugees were a group that consisted of Lauryn Hill and two other guys, basically. It doesn't really matter who the two other guys were. Okay, they were Wyclef Jean and Pras. They were both pretty good rappers. Particularly Wyclef. Wyclef has some clever moments. He was probably the second most talented member of the group, you could say, in a walk. I mean, it's not that difficult to pick out. I mean, you have someone who sounds like that leading into your track, that raises your interest instantly. Did you guys know that the Fugees had an album before The Score? I mean, I grew up around that time, and I guess the first album was kind of a flop, but you'd think that it would have come up, at least in my life, at some point. At least I would have had friends who were big fans of The Score, went out and looked for more music by them and played it around me, but that never happened. You just listen to this, how this starts. I mean, those are haunting vocals. So Lauryn Hill, at this time, young woman from Jersey, she had been involved in some music, I think, ever since her early teens. She had a role in Sister Act 2, so she sang in the choir in that movie. It was a pretty significant role from what I understand. I've never seen the movie. By the time that she gets to this level in her career, she had established herself. She had carved out this identity as kind of someone who could do it all. She was musically talented. She could write songs. She could rap as hard as Queen Latifah. She could sing as well as Mary J. Blige. There was nothing she couldn't do except, keep it together, I guess, mentally. So I'm going to go back to the first Fugees album called Blended on Reality. And I'm going to start with this track because this track features Lauryn rapping up top. This song's called Vocab. This is 1994.
Refugees, about to take you on a journey into the dimensions of the Book of Basement.
You can hear this sound unique in 94 and also not get popular in 94 because this is not what rap sounded like then. Damn, Lauryn could flow. So Lauryn has this flow on certain songs where she kind of uses the same number of syllables each line, like each line is kind of a mirror of the line before it. Continues that like that throughout the entire verse. This is one of those verses. Lauryn was very young at this time. She might have been about 19. So this is a very Tribe Called Quest sounding track with that bass sound and the booming drums. Some of the music even sounds kind of like The Roots. Oh, this is Pras. This is another track from the first album, and it's actually credited to Fugees' Translator Crew, which is a terrible name. I'm glad they got rid of it. I guess they were planning originally on rapping in different languages, so they called themselves Translator. Part of me actually wishes they would have stayed with that persona. They could have used C-3PO as a mascot. This has more of the jazzy horn sample sound that a lot of groups in the very early 90s were doing, and that almost nobody else was still doing by 1994. This is Wyclef's voice. He's probably the main vocalist on this track. He does a bunch of verses. He does the whole chorus. I always respected Wyclef, but I never really took him all that seriously. He always seemed like he was trifling half the time. Okay, so Wyclef and Pras, Lauryn was American, Wyclef and Pras were both from Haiti. They bring a lot of that kind of Caribbean island type of music style, including in the vocals. Wyclef sounded half the time like a second-rate Busta Rhymes, and the other half of the time sounded like he was trying to be Shaggy or somebody. But musically, I recognize that he has talent. Just wasn't sure what the hell he was going on about half the time. I'm sure a lot of it was slang that was steeped in some kind of reggae or Caribbean tradition that I'm not familiar with. Oh, here's Lauryn. So that line, if that sounded familiar, it's because that line was quoted in the song What I Got by Sublime. Never had to battle with no bulletproof vests. Like, come on, you think Bradley Noel came up with a line that good? That was all Lauren, so I'm gonna hear that again. You know, Lauren just instantly comes off like a superstar on this track. I'm not even sure why the other two guys are in the group, to be honest. I think she would have easily gotten famous without them. This song kind of makes me laugh. This is Boof Baff. This song kind of sounds like Onyx. Fugees are usually not this aggressive. They're a little more mellow than this on most of the tracks. You know, even though it's aggressive, it doesn't really sound that angry. Still a positive sounding song. This was actually familiar to me. I must have heard this stuff somehow, somewhere. Oh, shit. She comes in so hard on the track. She was versatile, too. I mean, she could just transform her flow, her style from song to song. Changes like a chameleon. Did they just cut her off? She wasn't even done with that verse. They were just, let's go into the hook. No, guys, let her finish. This is a solo Lauren track from the first album. It's called Some Seek Stardom. You know, you can hear the traces of the kind of sound that they would have on the score on this album. It never quite all comes together, though. This kind of reminds me of like the NWA album tracks, the ones that are not famous because they're basically not playing to the band's greatest strengths. We still have yet to find out how many mics do they rip on the daily.
Pick up your microphones.
The vibe is already totally different. Something a little bit darker, a little murkier.
Yo, how many mics do we rip on the daily?
This sounds more like a Cypress Hill type of track. The production is more dense, but it's still minimal. This is an Enya sample. Enya was gangsta. I wish more rappers would have sampled new age artists, to be honest. I would have loved to hear like Wu-Tang's take on a Yanni track. The chorus is taken from a Delphonics song, I believe. Production just got a lot heavier in this album. You know, they sound a little bit more calmed down, a little more confident in themselves, but still unique. Still doing the things that made them different from other artists at the time. She's just throwing out vocals all over this track. Yo, it's like impossible not to be overshadowed by somebody like this when they were in the group. She's gonna upstage you every time. I make tracks like I'm homeless. Rock orgies with Borgie and Bess. Capture your bounty like Elliot Ness. Yes, just rhymes, bars for days on end. It's almost not fair. Okay, so this is Fuji La. This is a very multicultural sounding song. This sample actually kind of reminds me of something from Enter the Wu-Tang. Like, it's that good. This video is really cool. You should look it up. It almost looks like a blaxploitation version of the Beastie Boys Sabotage video. Okay, that's a good picture. So this shot in the video right here, see that? Basically Wyclef and Lauren both singing, harmonizing, flowing on the track. Then Praz is just chilling over there. He's like, yeah, I'm here too. Whatever. Looks like one of those Bond films like Live and Let Die or something. Paul McCartney shout out in a rap song from 1996, huh? Where else are you gonna find that? These guys were fashionable too. A lot of 90s fashions don't look good today, but these still look pretty cool. Here's Praz. So that brings us to the big hit on the album. It's a cover of Roberta Flack's Killing Me Softly with his song. I had a confession, I've never cared for this one. And Lauren sounds good on it, she always sounds good, but it's something about the song itself. It doesn't really do anything for me. It just feels kind of one note, I guess, emotionally. But this is the biggest hit, this was inescapable. This album won all the Grammys, by the way. This band was like the ABBA of rap or something. No, that analogy doesn't really work. Or they maybe the Fleetwood Mac of rap? I don't know. I think this arrangement's just a little too stripped down for me. If you hear the original, it's kind of a lounge jazz style song. It has kind of a Girl from Ipanema feel to it. But this is just drums. And voice. Yeah, I mean, it's smart to focus on the voice that way, but maybe not on a song like this. Oh, there's the bass. One time, two times. What do you guys think this song is about? It always sounded like it was about Jesus in this version. I guess those backup vocals sound kind of gospel choir-ish to me, I don't know. Like, this song is called The Beast. This is a weird psychedelic cut that it starts with that I've always liked. And the production work just got so much more layered on this album. I've just always liked the way the bass unfolds on this track. Yeah, this song's called Zealots. You hear this at the beginning. This is like almost something you would hear in a Kendrick Lamar song, this beginning. Yeah, you know he was fans of these guys. Alright, so this track's called Cowboys. This is a posse cut between Fugees and the Outsiders. There you go. So the structure of this track is each verse has a member of the Fugees trading lines with a member of the Outsiders, which is a group out of Detroit. Eminem was a member of at one time, but not on this track. So this is Wyclef and Pacewan is on the first verse. I don't know why rappers ever stop comparing themselves to cowboys. I feel like that is a trope that always works for me. You know, everything from Beastie Boys' Paul Revere, Bone Thugs and Harmony's Ghetto Cowboy. Yeah, you can't go wrong playing off of that Old West myth. Pacewan, Young Z, Rod Digga, those are the members of the Outsiders on this track. But it has kind of a battle rap feel to it. So here's Lauryn Hill and Rod Digga. I love these sound effects on the edits. And the final verse, I believe, is Praz and Young Z. Oh, Kenny Rogers is gangster, guys. The sheriff, I shot John Wayne, pushed him off the runaway train in the movie Shane. This last track is their cover of No Woman, No Cry by Bob Marley. So when Wyclef went solo, this is the kind of stuff that he did, I think, more often than not. Yeah, his whole Rastaman persona just never really worked for me. Can you pick a more obvious Bob Marley song to cover? Maybe, I don't know, I Shot the Sheriff, Buffalo Soldier. Are there any non-obvious Bob Marley songs? Not that I mind this version, it's alright. Fugees have broken up, reunited more times than, I don't know, the Eagles or somebody. I'm going to make the case that it's probably for the best. We did get a bunch of solo stuff from them after that album. The best one is probably Lauryn Hill's album, and even she couldn't sustain that success. Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is arguably better than The Score. Wyclef, of course, did his solo album, The Carnival. Praz did some solo stuff. He probably had the biggest solo hit out of any of them, actually. He did Ghetto Superstar with Maya and Old Dirty Bastard. You know, a lot of these times when we see groups that kind of made a huge impact ruling for 1 or 2 years or just making that one great big album, they never really did anything wrong other than set impossible expectations for themselves. Do you really think The Score Part 2 would have measured up in any way? Is there anything they could have put on a follow-up album that wouldn't have been considered a massive disappointment? Commercially, critically? You see stories like that all the time. There's been very few groups who have been able to sustain that kind of momentum that they had, or who don't spectacularly flame out in some way after reaching that kind of success. I think time would have caught up to them eventually. What they left with us was probably the best that we were ever going to get from them. But who knows? I mean, they're all still around. They could reunite tomorrow and put out the best album of their careers, for all I know. I guess it's that possibility that continues to make them appealing to people. Just the fact that we'll never know. Whatever album we construct in our minds is going to obviously be more worth the hype than anything that could exist in reality. But come on, just enjoy what you got. I guess that's the lesson. Yeah, that was The Score biggest album of 1996. And essentially, we never heard anything from them as a group again. They have reunited a bunch of times, probably even put out some new material. But yeah, I just don't think, given the state of the members, the success all might have been a little too much too soon for them. Certain members, I'm not going to say who, probably weren't equipped to handle that kind of success to begin with. But yeah, if you ever want to be remembered as an iconic musician in the 90s, just put out an all-time classic album and then never do anything else. I think that's the best lesson that we can learn from the Fugees. Or, if you're Lauryn Hill, put out 2 all-time great classic albums, one as part of a group and then one solo, and then disappear forever. Yeah, I mean, you'll ascend to mythic status essentially forever, and you'll never have to do anything else. Nice work if you can get it. I hope you enjoyed going back through the Fugees with me. I was really anticipating that I was going to be sick of those songs. They still sound really good to me. I just heard them constantly. Couldn't get away from it, really. You couldn't avoid them if you tried that year. Even Killing Me Softly sounds better to me now than it did back then. I couldn't stand that song at the time. But yeah, if you're going to be an iconic 90s musician, that's the way that you do it. So until next time, I am the Jaquio, and this was Bad 90s Music.